Thank you very much, Andrew. My first task here is to break the gender mold that we've had today, and I'm very happy to be here and to do so. My presentation is not necessarily what I thought it was going to be when I started this, and I'll explain that as I go along. But before I start, could I ask for a show of hands? How many of you here are wide-format digital printers? Okay, good. And how many of you have also got commercial offset presses, or who serve the commercial market as well? Slim. Okay, good, thank you. I'm here to talk about, with this, do I move or what? Does this work? Can you hear me still? Yeah. Sustainability for success. My name's Laurel Brunner. I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. I'm not nearly so interesting as most of the people who've been on today, not particularly creative, but I have been around a long time. I'm a managing director of Digital Dots and a freelance journalist, and I'm very happy to see some of the people I write for here in the audience. I also do consulting, and I write other stuff as well as stuff about the graphic arts. So, very relevant for today, I'm a member of TC 130, which is the ISO committee responsible for standards relating to the graphic arts industry. Okay, and specifically within that committee, I work in a number of working groups, but I'm the convener of Working Group 11, which looks at the environmental impact of print. Graphics technology, because we have already published one standard, ISO 16759, do write that down, it's terribly important. It's for carbon footprinting digital media. And since it was published in July, it's been on the TC 130 bestseller list, which is great. There are also two carbon calculators in the market, one from Ricoh and one from Heidelberg, which I think, well, I don't know if they've announced it or not, I'm telling you. Heidelberg have got a carbon calculator for print media that has been certified for compliance to the standard I mentioned, 16759, by the Fraunhofer Institute, which is very good news. I also blog on a weekly basis, and again, many of the people in the audience here see my blogs or receive them. FESPA is one of our partners in our Verdigris project, and they publish the blog every week, I think. So you've probably seen it. Digital Dots, a collection of like-minded pixies, somebody once described us as. We're a group of people who work together on different types of projects. It's a very dynamic team. We are all people involved heavily in digital production technologies. We've all been involved in this industry for a number of years. So we do consulting, and we write stories and white papers for people. And we also audit for ISO 12647 Part 2. I'm sure you all know exactly what I'm talking about. The ISO 12647 series of standards is a series of quality management and process control standards. And Part 2 is for the offset printing industry, or offset printing process rather. And obviously 9001, I'm sure you've all heard of that, it's a quality management standard. This work puts us in a very, shall we say, intimate position with the printing industry in all aspects of it. So wide format, packaging, newspapers, you name it, we do it pretty much. We also publish a journal every month called Spindrift, which carries no advertising. It's entirely subscriber supported. It's got a worldwide readership, and it is pretty much the only thing of its kind. And I'm happy to say that FESPA is a licensee of Spindrift, so you as members of FESPA can read it anytime you like. We only cover things to do with digital production, including digital finishing recently. We also founded Verdigris, which is an industry initiative, oh you can see it there, I can't see it here, to improve the knowledge of environmental matters in the graphic arts industry. And we do that through the weekly blog. We do occasional longer articles and case studies, and we provide a kind of network for people with like-minded interests. And I mentioned about the TC 130 stuff and Working Group 11. I forgot to tell you what else we're working on within that group. We've published a carbon footprinting standard for print media. We're working on a carbon footprinting standard for digital media as well, which is a quite daunting task. We are also working on standardizing de-inking procedures. which means getting ink off of substrates so that they can be reused for some other purpose and they can enter the recycling stream. And I'm sure you're aware that this has been a very contentious issue in the industry. Verdigree members have helped me to come up with a model for how we might do this. So that's one of the reasons that we set it up in the first place. So, to the topic of the day, setting the scene. We're talking about sustainability here, but I'd like to make a few kind of statements and explain to you where I'm coming from in terms of environmental impact and sustainability. It's not just about preserving trees and looking after the environment. Sustainability is something that will be necessary to your business's survival, because we either take care of our own housekeeping or some external force will do it for us. We've already got things like the EU timber regulation, which requires people placing wood-based products on the European market to demonstrate complete due diligence so that they know where the trees came from, where the pulp came from, right down to the individual tree species. So your business depends on having an understanding of environmental impact and of sustainability. We've heard a lot today about trying to integrate digital media with print. There is no disconnect between them. They coexist. They are a coexisting reality. You've seen several examples of it today. There are going to be many more over time as people's imaginations kick in and they realize what they can do with data. Go. So that's because we started off with digitizing prepress, then we had digitizing printing processes and digitizing delivery. So digital technology is the cornerstone of all communications, whether it's a tweet, whether it's an encyclopedia that gets printed, whether it's a record label. And incidentally, Neil had that lovely example of vinyl record sales. Last year, the number of vinyl records printed went up for the first time in a very long time. So people don't turn their back on technologies. They just embrace what's new for a while, and then they often revert to what they really enjoy most. And print, as somebody once told me, speaks to us uniquely and patiently. It's also an ideal mechanism for triggering responses to other media. So digital technology makes all of this possible. I said earlier, there's no disconnect between printing and digital media. There's also no disconnect between printing and managing our environmental impact. This is not an either-or scenario. You don't have to either be green or not green. You can be both, successful as a printer and successful in terms of managing environmental impact. Print is sustainable, obviously. It's based on a renewable resource, trees. For every tree that gets cut down for either wood-based products or paper, 3 more get planted. There is an enormous industry supporting print's sustainability. And if we do away with print, what will happen to all of those forests? We're already seeing what's happening to forests in Sumatra. They've been destroyed largely by pulp and paper companies who didn't think in terms of the future, and who are now changing their minds and setting up plantation forests, all of which help to capture carbon, all of which help create eco-friendly environments and support the planet in a way that's very positive. And this is only going to happen if people continue using trees as raw material. And this is the most important message of my presentation. Cutting carbon cuts costs. If you can reduce your carbon footprint, you will cut the costs to your business, which means you can improve your margins. Okay, we talk about your business now. I'm going to make some assumptions based on that little mini survey. I hope I'm right. You all use digital technology, obviously, and you all accept that it is a reality of your production model. You might not necessarily accept that you need to extend that model to the internet or to additional services that are entirely digital, but digital production is your reality. Color, obviously, another very important reality. There's more color on printed pages nowadays than there has ever been, and that's because the cost of prepress has collapsed and the cost of color production has also collapsed. It's also because of standards such as the 12647 series and various other standards within the PDF series that make it possible to deliver accurate color across media. But it's getting much more complex. Every iteration of Adobe Creative Suite brings new capabilities for designers to use, and the same applies to Quark Express. And they will create more complex color, more transparencies, more tinted vignettes, more diverse uses of typography, shadows, all those features. And they'll do it more often and more efficiently because they can, because the technology is there. So you're having to deliver on a promise that you have no control over. The need for transmedia data consistency. I hate the term cross-media. It's a dreadful term. We should be using transmedia, because transmedia connects one media to another. Cross-media just means that the data can be used in two different environments, two or more different environments. We need transmedia data consistency so that anything that happens at any part of the supply chain informs another part of it. So, for example, if somebody wants to download and digitally print a book on a networked digital device, and it's not necessarily color capable, there needs to be something in the data that allows it to be corrected in some manner or means. So that we need transmedia data consistency so that the same data is accurate for every media. You're also having to produce the unexpected. And I'm sure this happens more and more as clients come to you saying, well, I want to do a car wrap, but I also want to do some t-shirts to go with that car wrap because I'm going to have this car at a trade show. And I'd also like some brochures that look really nice and that are personalized according to the people handing them out, or whatever. So whatever random weird thing, unexpected jobs are really the norm these days because of digital technology and because people are using their imaginations. The market is also demanding far more than it ever has done. And this is not unique to the printing industry. If you look at something like going to pop concerts, we were talking about pop music a little while ago, the way you order tickets and you get your tickets, the speed with which you can order them, all of those things are different now than they were. The same with the restaurant business. When you go into a restaurant, you expect a certain level of service that you might not have expected a few years ago. All of us want things quicker, and when we want them. We want them to be at the right quality. We spoke earlier this morning that quality is assumed. Yes, it is, in all things. We are far less forgiving than we used to be for shoddy work. But we want it cheap as well. Cost pressures will never go away. It's always going to be time, quality, money. So, what I'm talking about in terms of the environment is about taking control, not just of your business's environmental impact, but also in the way you manage your business. You manage your people, and you help give them the resources that they need. They need knowledge. Make sure they've got it. Encourage them to read the trade press. Encourage them to read white papers. Encourage them to go on training courses if you can. They need experience as well. And they need understanding. That's the most important part of this. When does data become information? And when does information become knowledge? These things take understanding in order for them to change from something that is just a load of stuff in your head to something that can be really used to improve how you produce work. Your supplier relationships, take control of those as well. Don't let your suppliers bully you into contracts that are not in the interests of your business. Make sure that if you have a contract that states a certain set of criteria being fulfilled, that they do get fulfilled. And be demanding about technology upgrades. And be inquisitive about what your suppliers are developing, particularly when it comes to digital workflows and quality control. Your customers, I don't mean, chain them to the wall or anything. I mean take control of how you relate to them and of their workflows, of how they deliver files to you. No, I didn't mean beat them up. Take control of the supply chain because, for example, if you're constantly having to rework jobs from a particular customer because they don't understand that you use a different CMYK color space to the one that they use on their proofer, you're wasting your time and you can't charge for that. It's far cheaper in the long run to educate your customers about how you want to receive files, for example. Control the technology as well. I can't tell you how many customers we talk to, printers and print buyers, who have no concept of what they've got sitting in their factory or sitting in their design studio. They only use a certain amount of features in the technology. They don't use the full suite. They don't listen when their supplier or their trainer explains that they could also be doing such and such a thing that could give them new revenues. Too many people stick with what they know instead of being bold enough to actually accept that they don't know everything and that it might be quite useful to explore the technology's capabilities a little bit further. Money. Yeah, that's the one that takes the most control, and it's the most slippery of all. But make sure that what you spend your money on, you get a good return on the investment. Whether it's a big piece of kit, whether it's some training that you send somebody on, whether it's consumables. Cash flow and costs. These are the things that kill any business. These are the biggest murderers of a small business or a large one. Go. Okay, this word, oh, it's all on the top, sorry about that. Ecologic isn't a real word. It comes from the Swedish word for environmentally friendly, which is ekologisk, I think. Is that how you say it? Yes, ekologisk. And I really like an English version of it because ecologic means environmental logic as well as economic logic, and it means efficiency. So, processes mean resource use, and resources are what most impact the environment, how you use them. So you need to be efficient in your processes if you want to bring your carbon footprint down and your margins up. Order taking and processing. How often do companies have more than one database of customers? Too often still. How often do the people taking the orders not necessarily know the right questions to ask, for example, how the finishing is going to be taken care of, or whether they know how to deliver a PDF with the right colors in it, whether they're using spot colors. Data and file management, this is the most important one of all. Too few companies use proper naming conventions for incoming files. They don't necessarily look at those files and those customer profiles to see to what extent that particular job is profitable and why. They focus on the run length, the media that's used, but they don't necessarily look at the intangibles. How many times the customer service people have to contact them, why the colors are not right. All those types of questions are all to do with the data and the file management, and they often don't get asked. Formats and color control. A job that comes in that looks like it's A4 that actually is a few millimeters shorter or longer on one of the lengths. The data format as well might not be right. Somebody might deliver you a PDFX file that you can't process because your RIP doesn't support it. That's a waste of time because you've got to send the file back. Color control, which is a subject I'm very keen on. It's boring, I know, and it's a bit sad, but color management is one of the most, costly mistakes to make. It's to mismanage color and to not understand how color should be rendered across devices, whether it's your monitor, your customer's monitor, or the device you're printing to. Color control is vitally important. Media production. Control how you produce work. So for example, if you're a large format digital printer and somebody comes to you with a commercial job, understand how you can nest loads of copies of that job onto one single piece of substrate to use your machine properly. Make sure that when you're producing, you come up to color immediately on your press, that the colors are accurate, that the gamut is what your customer's proof is expecting. Because this is actually about managing processes and also reducing waste. So waste management isn't just about getting your waste collected efficiently, it's also about managing time so that you don't waste time, so that you don't waste people's efforts, and that you don't waste your human resources, people getting bored and fed up with correcting the same errors over and over again. This is all to do with waste management, and this is all to do with sustainability. and it's to do with your wage bill, which is the biggest cost any company has. You need to make sure you're getting a return on that investment. Go. So, cutting carbon, that says carbon dioxide because carbon didn't fit across the top, but cutting CO2 cuts costs. Waste reduction, obviously. If you waste less, you're using your resources more efficiently and you can bring down your carbon footprint. The way you do that is to reduce errors and remakes and consumables usage. Get yourself away from the position that one of our packaging customers was in. They were having to sell the print that they produced because the colors were wrong. They were having to convince their customer that this particular type of purple is very difficult to print and that they'd have to accept that it wasn't quite right. That cost them a fortune. You don't want to be in that position. So you need a process that is error-free. Manage your energy, obviously. This is a very simple, basic, straightforward thing to do. Turn off lights when rooms are empty. Encourage people to be sensible about how they use electricity. Turn off your devices if you can overnight, or leave them on. They might be better off left on overnight, depending on the machine. Because lower emissions means lower bills. And again, this all feeds into your margins. If you can calculate how much energy you are using for a particular job, you can see what your margin might be if you can lower the emissions. Automation. This is the most important point about having a business that is both sustainable in and of itself and that has a minimal environmental impact. Speed. You want fewer hands to touch the file because human hands are expensive. They're also error prone. You want to get more files through your workflow. We've had some dealings with a commercial printer who had set up a web-to-print system that processes thousands of jobs every day, and they are making a fortune because they've got a very, very good web-to-print system. They've got extremely fast digital presses, and the average value of each job is about let me think, what is it in euros? Yeah, probably about €2.20. And they're making money on it because of the volume and because of the sheer number of files they get through the workflow, because it's all fully automated and very fast. And this means that you're using your hardware much more efficiently. If you can keep your machines running all the time, every day, they're making money for you. They're not sitting idle. And this is extremely important. There is a fundamental conflict here between reducing emissions and using machines, but we can't deny the fact that we need to communicate, and print is a very good way of doing it. What we have to accept is that we can do it in a way that's environmentally sustainable rather than not. So resource control, again, people. If you can automate your workflow and use the technology effectively, you reduce the number of complaints. If you implement ISO 9001, you'll end up with a process that helps you deal with customer complaints so that you don't keep having them. People will be much more productive if they are in a happy environment, meaning that they're not bored by their work, meaning that they're not in a damage limitation mode all the time, and meaning that they understand that they are actually contributing to reducing an environmental impact or potential environmental impact. Control your resources. Consumables. I was at a printing plant a couple of months ago, and they had all of these enormous rolls of vinyl leaning in a corner and next to a door that leaked. So the bottom end of this, the rolls nearest to the door, were ruined. Why don't you store these somewhere? Oh, this is where they deliver them and they're too big to move. So rearrange your factory, because this was whole big rolls of material being ruined. Control it so that you don't have to waste it. You will also improve the return on the investment you make into that equipment if you don't have so much waste. Go. Ideas for change. There's loads of ideas for change, or for anything else for that matter. There's never a problem with ideas. We've all got hundreds and hundreds, and they're all brilliant. What matters is implementing them. So put in a policy. Design a policy for your energy usage that's bespoke to your particular plant. Consider where you seat your admin people, for example. Is their office next to the delivery bay where it's cold and drafty, or is it near the factory where it's nice and warm? Think about these things. They're a little oblique, I know, but they work. Improve the insulation that you've got. This should be basic for any business, whether you're in the printing industry or anywhere else. Solar panels. We had one customer that installed solar panels in the UK, this is, and cut their energy bill by 40%, which is an incredible amount. They had an awful lot of them, but it helped cut their energy bill. They did other things as well, but solar panels work. There's also the reduced dependency on grid energy, which is kind of cool for me, I think. Power perfectors. Does anyone know what a power perfector is? Has anyone got one? No, these are brilliant. These are really, really good. The way they work is you stick them into the wall at the mains, and 220 volts come out of the mains into the power perfector. They then feed the voltage that a particular machine needs. So if it's a press or a high-speed digital printer or a wide-format digital device, that device will only be delivered the voltage that it needs to operate. And it's quite interesting because when you go into a plant where there's a lot of heat generated, it's because of the excess voltage. It generates heat. That's physics, you know. It just dissipates as energy, as heat in the room. If you put a power perfector on, you're only using the energy you actually need. Again, a customer that we had in France who installed these things, they got their money back in something like 8 months, which is really quite good. Obviously, energy usage reduction and a rapid ROI. More ideas. I told you, there's lots. UV curing digital printers. Obviously, these are more environmentally friendly than their solvent equivalent because you don't need all of the extraction gubbins that go with those devices. Energy efficient machines. The developers are constantly working to optimize the energy that their machines use and to not waste energy in processes within a machine that have to compensate for some other shortcoming in the device. This is extremely important. When you buy a wide format digital device, ask about what its energy usage is, why it is the way it is, and why the thing is designed the way it is if it uses more energy than you think is reasonable. Centralized RIP system. All of you people who've got wide format digital devices, if you've got more than one device, can you put your hand up if you have more than one RIP? Ooh, dear. This is a really serious problem because you're managing a whole fleet of RIPs. And raster image processors are clever. They can be configured to drive multiple devices. So centralize your RIP system. You'll also save yourself a lot of money because one RIP system is a lot cheaper than a half a dozen. Manage your data. We've spoken a lot about that today. What does it actually mean? In color, it means measure, calibrate, and control that data. Calibrate all of the devices in your workflow. If you can extend it to your supply chain, get your customers to also calibrate their devices. Measure it regularly with a spectrophotometer. Test your device's color by printing it test sheets, complicated color test sheets to tell you how it's performing. Because if you know how that data is going to behave on different types of substrates, then you are in control of it. You won't have the shock of ugly print that's been configured for ISO-coated stock and is printed on vinyl and comes out a completely different color. That's a horror. If you can control your color, you won't have that problem. PDFX. Who has heard of PDFX4? Oh dear. Oh dear. PDFX4 is a version of PDF that is constrained. It uses very particular settings to specify how the PDF is built, and it supports CMYK and spot colors, and is based on PDF 1.6. Now, it's an indicator to me of the gap between application and development. If I tell you that PDF is about to be upgraded to 2.0, okay? PDF 1.6 is very yesterday. We are upgrading PDF to be version 2.0 that will have all sorts of other features in it. PDF X4 eventually will be upgraded, I guess, to something else, PDF 7 by the time we get round to it. Anyway, the point is control how your PDFs are configured, because then you will do away with a lot of the color problems that you might subsequently have without it. What does that say? That's a bit of a joke. I don't think print salespeople are ever going to go around in an electric car, but we have a customer who has done exactly that. And in terms of environmental impact, he's thrilled to bits, because the cars have a limited range and they have to come back to the office every night to be recharged, which means that his fuel bill has absolutely plummeted, because nobody's using their company cars to do the school run or to go to the shops or to go for a little journey in the country, because they're electric cars. Anyway. So what does this all mean? It means environmental impact reduction is a fundamental requirement for energy-intensive businesses. If we don't regulate ourselves or take control of our industry, somebody else will. I mentioned the EU earlier. There's also the UN and all sorts of other bodies that are very keen to reduce environmental impact for energy-intensive businesses. If you want to progress your business, you need benchmarks. You need to be able to control and measure your performance so that you can improve it. And in that process, you will reduce your carbon footprint. Measure your error rates over time. Quantify your customer service costs. And manage your resource allocations effectively. This is also terribly important for reducing environmental impact and also improving your sustainability. I hope you can understand, because I'm speaking rather quick. Taking control. Do a gap analysis in your business. It's usually better to get somebody from the outside who understands auditing and process control to do that gap analysis, because you are often blind to your own limitations. A process audit for every single process in your workflow, including the way files are delivered from your customers. Understand where your hidden costs are. What are you wasting your money on that you don't need to spend it on? People. Take control of people. Make sure they have the information and the knowledge they need to really come up with ideas for how to improve things. Tiny steps are the start of every journey. I don't know if somebody said that before, probably, but I think of it as whenever you're feeling a bit anxious about things, take a tiny step first. So, media are not digital or print or this or that. They are digital supply chains for content. That's all. What the content is will determine what the media should be. As Marshall McLuhan said a long, long time ago, the medium is the message. It's still the message. It's still integral to how you communicate. And sustainability in print is about media and environmental sustainability. The two things are very closely related. It's about your business success, sustained growth, and the future. So, improve your processes, and you'll see your margins improve as well. Be bold about it. Start with your data flows. Start with how you control your devices. You never know, it might actually work. Thank you. Sorry I overran.